Hey everybody, welcome to today's Marketing Bootcamp, what your website needs in 2020. My name is Matt Baer, I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited you guys are along for the ride with us today as we dive into the second part of our 6-part video bootcamp series on how to develop your 2020 marketing plan. It's really what we're diving into. So our first session that you caught last week, 2 weeks ago, was about how to develop that marketing plan at a high level. And over the next 5 weeks, we're going to dive into each of these components individually, starting with this session on how to make your website positioned for success, or how to make sure you're positioned for success in 2020. So a little bit about us. My name is Matt Baer, as I mentioned, the founder of Q4Launch. We're a destination marketing organization that works with hospitality companies, hotels, boutique hotels, inns, B&Bs, and vacation rental management companies from Singapore to Maui and just about everywhere in between. So know many of our customers are on today's boot camp. Glad that you guys are along for the ride, tuning into some of the things that we're doing at Q4Launch and working on that you're hearing about from your customer success managers. And then many of you here to learn today as well. So we're excited you guys are with us. So with that, let's dive into our session for today. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat panel and we'll get back to you on those questions. We're not going to be answering those live due to our live video format today. A little different technology change. Hopefully you're enjoying this change of technology. But feel free to drop those in the chat panel and we'll get back to you with answers to those. We'll also be using some polls throughout our time together today. So make sure you're tuned in, you're paying attention, you've got a fresh cup of coffee, you're buckled up, ready to go for our jam-packed session today, and be prepared to tune in and share your thoughts in our polls. So we're excited about that as we dive into our topic on making your website the best it can be in 2020 and really looking at what it needs to succeed in 2020. So with that, let's dive in. First of all, we want to talk about our next boot camps that we're going. So you got to have a little selfless plug in here to talk about the next boot camps we have coming up. So when you're planning your schedule, make sure you're planning around these. So Google 2020, developing your search plan on November 26th. So that's next Tuesday, I believe, for developing your search plan. The week of Thanksgiving, hopefully it'll be a little quieter week. You'll have time. You don't want to miss that session. It's going to be a jam-packed session with content you need to know because Google is driving the majority of your business, probably the majority of your revenue in your business. We need to spend a lot of time really understanding what's going on there. So that'll be a little longer session, but important. Followed by pay-per-click advertising and maximizing your return on ad spend, or ROAS, in 2020 on December 3rd. 5 tips for revenue generating email coming to you on December 10th. Really excited about that one. This is a huge opportunity for all of us in 2020. And then how to use Google Analytics to measure success, December 17th, that last week before Christmas. All your decorations should be up, so you'll have plenty of time to join us on that webinar to really tune into or make sure that you're ready to measure success of these efforts that you're going to put forward in 2020. So all of those are going to start at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so our friends in Hawaii and our friends in Singapore can tune in for that. So make sure that you're ready to go live for that. The recordings of these are only going to be available for a week after the fact. So that's different as well. So make sure you're paying attention to that, or you'll miss the recordings that we send out. And then lastly, I know many of you know friends in the industry, so share it with a friend who needs to be there. I get emails every time, oh, I wish so-and-so had been on this. Is there any way they can access it? So I'm telling you ahead of time, share this with them now so they can be there live. And share what you're learning with them, and it helps a lot as well as far as developing an accountability partner. In last week's boot camp, we talked about how to develop accountability a little bit around what you're doing, and sharing this with a friend is a great way to start that accountability conversation towards making 2020 the best year in your business it has ever been. So I encourage you to share it with a friend or multiple friends, or share it on social media. Whatever you want to do to get your friends to tune in, and then use those people as accountability partners as you go about implementing this strategy into your business. As entrepreneurs, as directors of marketing, as founders, as CEOs, we got to band together, support each other, cheer each other on, because nobody else is going to do it for each other. So find that accountability partner, find that person who can cheer you on, share this webinar, invite them to attend the boot camp with us. So with that, let's dive into our session for today. And we got to start with this, a little Ricky Bobby call out here. I don't know if I ever thought as a marketer I would have a NASCAR reference in a boot camp, but they know a lot about marketing in NASCAR. So your website is your most critical revenue generating resource. And if you ain't first, you're last, as Ricky Bobby says. I totally just spaced the name of that movie, but I'm sure you've seen it. Actually, I'm not sure that our target market probably has seen Ricky Bobby's Talladega Nights. There it is. But if you haven't, don't. unless you're really bored. The point being that if you're not first in your marketplace, if you don't have the best website in your marketplace, and I'm not talking about rankings right now, although we'll talk about that next week on the Google Bootcamp. If you don't have the best website in your marketplace, you're last, because people want to book with the best. So you really need to be thinking about that and constantly benchmarking yourself against your own marketplace to say, is my website the best? Because if it's not, that's where the bookings are going to go. And as part of that, you've got to be keeping up to date. And that's really what we're going to spend our time talking about today. But as I dive into this topic with you, and as we unpack what it means to be the best and how to prepare for that in 2020, I can't stress the importance of this enough, that your website is absolutely critical to your success. It's one of the most important investments you will make in your success in 2020. So my poll question for you right now is, how many of us are planning to launch a new website in 2020? How many of us want to be first, not last in 2020? So answer that poll, it's on your screen now. How many of us are planning to launch a new website in 2020? Or option 2, how many of us are planning to make a significant update to our website in 2020? Or option 3, I'm going to leave it as it is. You can check that box as well. So I'm going to launch a new website, I'm going to make a significant update in 2020, or I'm going to leave it as it is. And it's okay to check, I'm going to leave it as it is. Maybe you just launched a new website just recently or in 2019. Typically, the historic thought has been that websites have about a 3-year lifespan. So I was talking to somebody today, like, yeah, our website's pretty new. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, how new is new? And they're like, well, I think it's 3 to 5 years old. And I was like, that's not new. 3 to 5 years in the website design world, and they were complaining about some technology issues they were having with their current site. I was like, you're having these issues because your site is 3 to 5 years old. And in the website world, 3 to 5 years old is a dinosaur. It's outdated. It needs replaced. Well, we're going to circle back to that subject as well a little bit later on in our time together. So understand the importance of this. Understand if you're not first, you're last. And then let's dive into how do we get first? How do we make the website the best it can be in 2020? So the first thing I want to talk about, speed matters. You heard me talk a lot 2 weeks ago or a week ago in our marketing boot camp about how to build your marketing strategy, about training for a marathon. You heard me use way too many analogies about training for a marathon and that. You're probably like, okay, Matt, I get it, we're done. So no marathon analogies today except for this one. And that's that you've got to focus on your speed. In everything you're doing, in your execution of your business, so zoom out, let's not even talk about websites for a minute. Let's just talk about business. You've got to focus on speed, and speed of execution is absolutely critical. One of my favorite things I've read, and I circle back to it quite a bit, was Jeff Bezos' letter to his shareholders. I think it was 2016, where he talked about Amazon being a day one company and the fear of becoming a day two company. And I'd encourage you to search that out and read it if you haven't read it. I taught actually a whole webinar based off of it that year that came out. So I was very influenced by that as an entrepreneur myself and encourage you to find it. But part of that, there's a quote here from Amazon, from Bezos, from their kind of core values, that speed matters in business. Amazon believes that. There's a quote there from Facebook, move fast and break things. Kind of a similar mantra, and we've all heard similar mantras from different businesses, but the point is we need to drive forward. And there's a couple ways I think that applies to our websites. One, go live fast. I'll tell you, we hear stories all the time from people, oh, I just finished my website. It took me a year. It took me a year and a half to get it done. And that is not a good place to be. At the pace technology moves, if you're launching a website you've been working on for a year, chances are it's going to be out of date by the time you launch it. So you need to be thinking about that organizationally and say, okay, I need to partner with somebody that puts a priority on speed of execution and that makes a promise related to that and stands by that promise. And in the same way as the customer in that situation, you got to say, okay, I am going to prioritize this and I am going to make this a priority, and understand that it's never going to be perfect, but we have to move forward. If my current website is a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10, just as we rate things, and today my website that's in development is a 7 out of 10, and I'm waiting to try to get it to a point that it's a 10 out of 10 before I launch it. And I just had this conversation with a customer who's putting a lot of things on hold. She's like, well, I want to get this new photo, or I want to get that, or I want to get this video done first. And it's like, no, we've got a great website. Don't wait until it's perfect. Don't wait until you have that video. Don't wait until you have the perfect photography. Move it forward, because if we move from a 2 to a 7, that is a huge jump forward for your business. And that will drive revenue growth for you. If we wait till that 7 becomes a 10, we're never gonna get there. We're never gonna get to perfection, and we're never gonna really have it to that place. And Bezos talks about that same concept in his letter. He talks about once we have 70% of the information, we need to make a decision, or we think we need to make a decision, we make it and we move forward. Because if we wait till we have 90% or 100% of the information, the opportunity will have probably passed us by. So going back to some economic principles here of economic cost, go live fast. Iterate fast, and know that in today's technology world, you can iterate on your website, and you should be iterating on your website on a constant basis. And it's constantly evolving to get better. We're going to talk about that evolution later on in our time together as well. But go live fast. For our non-API integrated websites, we promise a 30-day launch time. And our team has challenged me as an entrepreneur on that multiple times and say, Matt, we need to slow it down. We need to not do it that way. We need to not promise that. But that's our promise, and we've stood by that for years because we understand how important speed should be for you and your business and how important it is for us in our business. And then we encourage our customers to come on that journey and move fast through that process, and then know that we're constantly going to be iterating it. We can easily add videos, change pictures, do whatever it is you think you need to do, and that we think you should do. And we're coming to the table with those proactive suggestions to iterate off of that, and to our core value, get better every day. So go live fast. Our integrated websites, we target a go live date of 45 days. We move fast through those processes because we understand time is money, and there's an opportunity cost to not going live with the website we have in development that's better than the website we're replacing. And then get support fast. Probably the number one complaint that our sales team hears when we're talking to prospective customers is related to website support about competitors. So when you think about it, when you're buying into it, it's not, most people are just looking who has the prettiest website or who has the best functionality, and they're not really leaning into what does that long-term support look like. But you're investing in a long-term relationship. It's not about the wedding night, it's about the marriage. And as part of that, you've really got to understand the marriage part of that comes with the support that you get, and leaning into and understanding the support that you're going to have for the long run of that relationship. And then make sure that it loads fast or faster. And there's a lot of misconceptions around this, and I talked to a team member of ours today that was helping one of their customers through this misconception, and it relates to mobile speed a lot of times. And that's the understanding, like you've got to understand what mobile speed is really measured on when Google's doing those tests. And that basically the Google page speed test for mobile is impossible to pass because they're using a 3G connection speed that has been throttled down to like the slowest possible speed anyone could ever browse the internet. And I just came back from a trip to Spain actually, and I browsed the internet on 2G speed. So I just got a flashback to those days. They're using basically that speed to test websites. So I just had the user experience. I know how painful it is, but in most of our marketplaces, and it's not that Spain's technology is behind the times, it's just that I didn't want to pay the extra money for the international data plan, so I got to use the slow data plan for free. But you just don't need to design for that. But that's what the page test, the page speed test is based off of. So you've got to look at it, and that's why I put the bracket ER, because it's not about achieving a particular score so much as it is about really understanding like we need to work towards speed, and at the same time understand design decisions we're making are trade-offs for speed. The fastest website you can have is a black and white text website. So black text on a white background, it will load wicked fast. Nobody wants that anymore. But in reality, those are the fastest websites you can have. So moving from that to where today's websites are, it's a constant trade-off in design decisions between speed and beauty, and understanding how to make those things together and make the right decision. So takeaway for you, those three things matter, but speed of execution in your business is so important. If you checked, yes, I'm going to do a new website in 2020, make that decision now, pick a partner and move forward. Move forward with speed, because businesses that will succeed in 2020 will be the businesses that move forward fastest. If you put the decision off, put the decision off, put the decision off, circle back a year from now, you're going to be decorating for Christmas 2020 a year from now and realize, oh, I said I was going to design a new website and I never did. And you left opportunity on the table as a result of it. Next thing, a unique brand story. I know a lot of us compete with Airbnb, and whether you love them or you hate them, that's not the point of what I'm going to talk about here. But as a group of independent hospitality people, and most of our customers fall in that independent hospitalitarian category, how have we let a newcomer beat us at this game that we invented? We invented this concept of a unique experience, a unique brand, a unique host, but Airbnb has really taken it and perfected it. So looking at a lot of the ways they brand, just looking at this image and how they've branded that experience that they're having, that host greeting the guest experience. Like, we invented that as an industry, but they have perfected the marketing and the advertising of that message so much. So what do you have that only you have? As we're facing an increasingly competitive environment, what you have that only you have is you. And you are one of the most special things about your business. Your team is one of the most special things about your business. When we study 5-star reviews of companies across the industry, the most common thing we find in a 5-star review is an employee mentioned by first name, which just drives home the fact. I'll get it one of these days, but it drives home the fact that your team, that you are what makes your business special. Yes, it's your amenities, it's your location, it's your quality, it's all those things, but you are what ultimately sets it apart. But as I look at so many people's websites all the time, I don't think that they tell that story well enough. Yet you look at Airbnb and they're telling that story. They're leading with that story all the time. They're not leading with technology. They're not leading with price. They're not leading with that. They're leading with the story of you. Either you belong, or you're a part of this, or you should be a host. Like, those are the things. They're leading with that story of you. And as the people who invented that concept within the hospitality space, I think we're better served to do that and need to lean into that in 2020 and find ways to highlight our own story as a part of our business's story, because our businesses are often a very personal reflection of who we are, and we need to lean into that. We also, as part of that, need to understand what our unique value proposition is. If you can't answer the question, why would they book with you versus competitor A, B, or C? You need to know that answer, and you need to tell that story. Not to call that competitor out by name, but showcase, shine a light on what's unique about you. What are your unique value propositions? What's special about your business, your hospitality solution, your B&B, your boutique hotel, your vacational management, and really shine a light on that. Because if you don't, you'll become a commodity and you'll just fall in with everybody else. And then show yourself off, because no one else will. Tell what's unique, tell what's special, brag on yourself a little bit. I personally struggle with this one a little bit, not to be like a braggadocious marketer, but at the same time, like, if you won't tell your story, nobody else will. If you won't tell how special you are, the awards you've received, the acclaim you have, nobody else will. So you got to come out of your comfort zone. Maybe you're a little bit reserved or shy in that capacity. You got to come out and brag on yourself a little bit. Brag on the things that your brand has accomplished, that your story has within it. Because no one else will. But those are the things consumers will connect to, and that's why they'll choose you over just another, vanilla box that they can choose down the street. So find out what those unique things are. Find out what your customers love, and a great way to do that is to read your 5-star reviews. They will tell you what they love. The things they tell you they love should be the headlines you use in your marketing. This is a lesson I learned early on in the first e-commerce company I had. People would call up and they would complain about competitor X or competitor Y. I would take that, and then that, not including the competitor's name, but telling that story about what was unique about us as it related to that. So I called so-and-so and this product's never in stock and I'm frustrated. So then our advertising headline was product X always in stock, guaranteed. And that worked really well for us, because we took what people complained about that we heard on the phone and we turned those into advertising messages. Because what we knew was, if a few people complained when they called our team, that there were a lot of other people there with that same pain point who weren't calling us, and it worked really well from a marketing and advertising perspective. So listening for those things, finding out what they are, and then telling your unique story in the midst of all that. Some really cool things you can do to make your unique brand story and tell that unique story about you and what's special about your company as it relates to you. A couple other things we'll dive into here. Make every visit count. I think in 2020, it's going to be a very difficult year, and we're going to talk about this next week in our Google session, but it's going to be a very difficult year from a driving organic search traffic. And knowing that there's less and less share available for us to drive to our sites, we need to make sure we make every visit count. And the concept or the process and the work of conversion rate optimization is going to be more important in 2020 than it has ever been, because I think it's going to get more and more difficult to attract traffic to our site. So we have to make sure that every visit counts. And as we do that, there's some suggestions here, and I'm going to hit on a couple of them. But one, make sure you have clear calls to action throughout your website that makes it abundantly clear what the next step for someone is to take. It amazes me how many sites still don't have clear calls to action. I was on several calls just today looking through people's sites, prospective customers, and talking to them, and I was like, there's no clear call to action here. Yes, you're bringing traffic into your website here, but where do I go from here? and then comparing that to another option with clear calls to action that make it easy for someone to know what's my next step to take. And as part of that, understanding that every part of your website is an entry point. Every part of your website, with changes we're going to talk about next week in Google, more and more interior pages are becoming landing pages. And as those interior pages become landing pages, that's the entry point for someone, or the doorway that they walk through into your website. What is that experience like? If I'm landing on that page, are you doing a great job of guiding me towards where you want me to go, to convert as a lead or to make a booking? Are you doing a great job of that? Maybe, maybe not, but unfortunately most people aren't. It's because they don't really understand where the trends in the industry are going. A couple other quick ones here. Considering adding live chat, this is a great option. There are statistics that say live chat can increase conversion rates by as much as 45%. I haven't personally seen that in times we've increased live chat, but I am a huge personal fan and user of live chat on sites for the instant gratification of getting my question solved, and do believe that it increases e-commerce conversion rates on sites. Whether it's as high as 45% or not obviously varies based on a lot of factors, but point being, I believe it's a good thing if you have a plan to staff it. If you have live chat and it's never on, I think it will hurt you more than help you. So if you're never going to be able to staff it, don't put it on. But even if you're a busy innkeeper, you're a busy hotelier, and you're running around and you don't have a team of people to help you with these things, there's great solutions that will work on your phone, and you can respond to live chat right in a text message or right within an app on your phone. So no matter wherever you are, you can make sure you're taking care of guests, potential guests on your website, and converting them into real guests. And then pop-ups work. We know this to be true, but use them sparingly. So if you're going to use pop-ups, they do work, but use them sparingly. And I know many of our customer success managers use these really well with our customers, and they're built into our platform in many ways, our website platform, to make that really easy to do. But use them sparingly. Don't go overboard with them. Next thing we want to look at here is look at unique desktop and mobile elements. So one of the Futureproof website updates we made and just launched recently was a mobile ribbon for our sites. And I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but the point being that we designed a ribbon specific to mobile devices, understanding that people need and want to access information differently. So as you're thinking about designing your website for 2020, think about how desktop design and mobile design are different, and make sure that you're putting both of those concepts into your mind. And there's some cool things that we're thinking about in 2020 that aren't ready yet, but are things that we're already kind of brainstorming about and looking at and saying, okay, how do we work this into what we're doing? How do we work this into our Futureproof platform and apply that and make that feature available for all of our customers as we lean into this more and more? As we do that, to talk a little bit about mobile data, mobile traffic has pretty much stabilized in 2019. So as a percentage of overall website traffic, broken down mobile, desktop, tablet, mobile traffic has been growing year over year, every year. And then this year, it's pretty much stabilized at 50 to 60%, probably an average of 55% across our customer base, meaning 55% of people who come to your website every day are on a mobile device. Compare that to 35% for desktop and 10% for tablet. And the thought has always been that people find stuff on mobile, but they book stuff on desktop. And that's still statistically what we're seeing. But while the traffic has pretty much stabilized, we have seen increases in e-commerce conversion rates and mobile bookings of about 20 to 30%. So what that tells me is people are getting better at this, and you need to make sure you're getting better at this, but also that consumers are getting more and more used to booking on a mobile device. And the actual software, iOS in the case of the iPhone, and Android software that runs so many other devices, is actually making this easier and easier for people by remembering credit card numbers and remembering addresses and auto-filling so much of that information on mobile and on desktop devices that make it a lot easier to book on mobile than it used to be. So those aren't things you need to do on your website. Those are things software is doing on iOS as well as on Android that are making it more likely someone would book on your website. So making sure you think about users differently and understand, how am I going to design this experience for desktop? How am I going to design this experience for mobile? And then as you're doing that, thinking about other parts of your marketing that might be the marketing implications that would come up as it relates to these different users. Things like, we know the mobile user on your website is more likely to be in destination. So how does that impact the way you think about marketing and the way you think about your website? They also have very unique needs. So how does that impact the way that we're doing things? So there's a lot of opportunities as you lean in and think about these things, and things our team is talking about internally and brainstorming and working into our Futureproof platform roadmap for features down the road about how we address this user differently to continue to drive mobile conversion higher. Because I think in 2020, we'll see mobile conversion rates continue to increase and bookings on mobile devices continue to increase, while I do believe we'll see mobile traffic pretty much stable as it relates to percentage of total of overall traffic, the stat we talked about here. So looking at that into 2020, believing we'll see more mobile bookings and making sure our sites are set up for that. Another thing, we know our websites, and you've heard me talk about this, need to work more like software and less like a dinosaur. And what I mean by that, I promised we'd circle back to that dinosaur reference, so there it is. But what I mean by that is about 10 years ago, the software industry started a major transition, and it became pretty much mainstream, this concept of SaaS, or software as a service. I studied it a little bit in preparation for today's boot camp. What I found out was that the concept's actually 40 to 60 years old, so it well predates that, but it's really in the last 10 years that it's become mainstream in the software industry. And I would pretty much guarantee that all the software you use in your business today is now SaaS oriented, or software as a service software. Now there's a few people, I actually talked to a prospective customer 2 weeks ago that still had a physical server in their office and still had a location where that software was installed, and the person came out and did it, which blew my mind that that was still out there. But the point being, it has become mainstream, and it is the dominant player in the software space. And the website design industry is transitioning that way. And about 2 years ago, we as a company made a huge investment that we believe the website design world will complete the transition that the software design industry, or the software world, has already made, that you all have already made with the software industry, and that the website industry is making it as well. So the traditional pay a bunch of money up front for a website, build it, it'd be a painful, long process, launch it, and it's out of date the day you launch it. Those days are dying. And if you're launching that kind of a website right now, you're launching a dinosaur that's going to end up being a skeleton in the closet probably pretty quickly. So the alternative being launching a future-proof website that works like the software you already have and proactively gets better. This is a quick screenshot of an example of our Futureproof platform email we sent out just recently, announcing some new features for our Futureproof platform. But what that means is that just like the software that you're already subscribed to, your website can get better every day. So our code base that makes our website work, about 90% of that code is actually in a centralized repository, which allows us to update that code essentially at the push of a button. Update it one place, and it updates all the websites that are running off of that part of our platform, and update that for everybody. So we can release new features, new technology, new bug fixes, new patches. We can do all of that things incredibly quickly and innovate incredibly quickly on top of our platform. And then the other 10% that I haven't mentioned is really what makes it custom for you. So we knew we wanted to provide this like custom experience, custom design, custom all that stuff that you know and love, while knowing that really 90% of your website, the underlying, the background, the back office side of it, you don't necessarily care about. You just want to know that it works. So having that decentralized and enabling us to update that, push new features out to that platform, but then keeping that 10% unique for every customer, makes that custom experience come together with that platform experience and execute really, really well. And in the last 2 years, we've put about 200 people on our Futureproof platform, and it's working really, really well for those people. There's technology challenges all the time, of course, with any technology, right? New API integrations and changes from those, and those things have to be addressed, but we're able to do that at great scale because we have so many people on the platform moving that forward. So as you're thinking about 2020, and maybe you're thinking about, okay, we need to do a new website in 2020, this is a really important part of it. Whether you do this with us or not, this is a very foundational decision you need to make. And that's, do I want to do a website that's platform driven and that is working like software that I'm already using, where it's getting better every day? Or do I want to do a website kind of in the old school way of doing things, where it's project driven and it's expensive up front, and then you have the responsibility and the cost of maintaining it all the time, and any changes you want to make, you got to come up with those ideas. So you've got to think about that as a foundational element, because the path you choose on that will take you very different directions. And I think that's controversial. Actually, I know that's controversial, but we've caught a lot of flack for moving the industry that direction as a company, but we believe it's in the best interest. And honestly, I think we've caught flack for it because it's way more profitable to do the old school way. Like, I'll just be honest with you, launching a website and charging someone anywhere from 5 grand to 50 grand is way more profitable than launching a subscription-based service. When you just look at the metrics and you look at how it breaks down, I can either charge 300 or 500 a month, depending on the platform, or I can charge 25 to 50 grand. You can pretty quickly do the math to figure out which of those is going to be more profitable in the long run. But the point being, it's not about the company's profitability, it's about what's best for you and enables you to be successful in the long term. So as you're thinking about that and you're thinking about different people's motivations that might be guiding you one way or another, I would encourage you to figure it out for yourself. Dig in, figure it out, because there are different solutions that will be right for different people. We still have people come to us, and the right thing for them is to build a website the traditional, older school way because of the uniqueness of what they need to pull off. It can't be done on the platform we developed. But the majority of the time, the platform is the right fit for people, and then using that 10% to customize it for them. And I do care, but I say I don't care if you use our platform or not. I do care. I care a lot because I know what we put into it. And I know how it can impact your business. But whether it's the right fit for you or not is up to you. But the point being, I would hate to see you move a direction, spend money on something that's old school from the get-go versus stepping into the new generation and doing it in that software as a service or website as a service model, which probably won't catch on as a term quite as well as SaaS does. But still, I think a direction a lot of us need to be thinking about as we're leading into 2020. And do you want to have a dinosaur, or do you want to have something that's getting better every day? And understanding the implications of that decision is really important as you're looking at 2020 and what you want to do from a website perspective. Next thing here, we're going to hit on a couple 2020 design trends. There's so many we could talk about, but we're just going to touch on a couple. One is minimalism, and actually moving away from all of the over-designed aspects of everything, all the over-design that people have been doing for years because they're chasing beautiful and having the most beautiful website, which in reality slows it down and makes it more difficult to use. So things are swinging that pendulum back toward the minimalism side. If you want to see a great example of that, Apple does a beautiful job with minimalism in a lot of their graphic design and has for years. So I think we've seen this trend kind of going this way for a while. Also, the use of white space. So created some awkward spacing in there just to draw your attention to it. But there's also a graphic here on the screen that we'll put up to help you understand like what we mean by white space. Just creating more space around things. Gives it more of an elegant approach and helps people really pay attention to what's important to them. So we've gotten pushback from customers on this as we've tried to incorporate this into design, but encouraging you guys to lean more into this and to understand the spacing can really create some elegance and help draw people's attention to things that we want to be important. And then interactivity. I think we're going to see a lot more interactivity in websites in the coming year, in the coming years really, but the coming year. One simple way to do that ties back to chatbots we talked about earlier, making your site more interactive. Having great calls to action can do that at a very basic level as well, but just looking for those opportunities to make your site more interactive. We just relaunched our own website this year, and there's some more interactive elements within that site than our old site has, just leaning into those trends a little bit in a very simple way, but leaning into those trends a little bit to help our customers find information that's most relevant to them. And then increased contrast and so many other things that are going into ADA compliance. We're having to tell customers and educate customers about design decisions they're making and color choices and contrast and everything else as it relates to we can't do it this way because it's actually not ADA compliant. So I think we're going to see a lot of design changes in 2020 as people strive to be more and more ADA compliant in their design. And we're seeing that in a huge way in the B&B and boutique hotel industries. Hasn't really creeped into the vacation rental world for some reason, I don't know. But if you're a vacation rental manager on today's boot camp, it is coming to your world. Lawsuits will come to the vacation rental space the same way they've come to the B&B and boutique hotel space. And if you're a customer of ours, take peace in the fact that we've been preparing for that for 2 years and are well down that road. If you're in the vacation rental space and you don't know if your web developer has, I would ask the question because you don't want to be one of the first to be a part of an ADA lawsuit in the vacation rental space. And unfortunately, because it hasn't become mainstream in that space, there's still a lot of sites that aren't ADA compliant in the website space on the vacation rental side of what we do. Or not ours, but other people's sites on the vacation rental, in the vacation rental marketplace. So make sure you understand that and the implications of ADA compliance within a website. And ADA compliance within a website has everything to do with your website and really nothing to do with your office. So I know a lot of times you're like, well, yeah, my office is ADA compliant. I'm like, I'm not talking about that. We're talking about your website, and that your website has to be ADA compliant. Old news for many of us in the hotel side of things, maybe new news for those of us on the vacation rental side of things. But look into that deeper. We actually taught a whole webinar on that a while back. Be happy to get you that as a resource on what it means to be ADA compliant. Although that's a very difficult measure in and of itself, we're hoping to get more clarity around in 2020. So that's been a lot of information. There's a zoom in on our graphic there, but that's a lot of information about how to really make sure your website is the best it can be in 2020. And then the last thing I'll say on this is measure everything. You have to measure everything to really understand, is your website in the best place it can be for 2020? We're going to talk more about that on our December 17th bootcamp, how to use Google Analytics to measure success. But how often are you in analytics? Like, answer that question. And if it's not on a weekly basis, at least, then you're not in there often enough. I've said on past boot camps or webinars, be in there at least monthly, but you really need to be in there on at least a weekly basis. What are your top 3 revenue sources? You should know the answer to that question. What are your top 5 landing pages? Excuse me. I don't expect you to know that one off the top of your head, but you should know how to get to that information. Or someone should be paying attention to that for you. And we're going to talk more about that in next week's webinar about Google search and why is that important. And then make sure that you do register for that boot camp. Many of you registered for all the boot camps at once. That's great. If you didn't, make sure you go back and register for that boot camp on December 17th about how to use Google Analytics to measure success. So is your website ready for 2020? Maybe the website you have, maybe the website you're thinking about building, but is it ready for 2020? We'd love to help you figure that out and spend 10, 15 minutes together and just give you a quick demo of our Futureproof website platform. You can learn a lot in 10 or 15 minutes about where you are and as far as where the industry is going, and we'd be happy to do that demo with you. So there's a poll on your screen right now. You can click yes, I'd like a Futureproof website demo. Our team will follow up with you to schedule that demo. Again, maybe a 10 or 15 minute demo. Maybe you're just curious about what that means and you want to talk about it. We're happy to answer those questions. Or simply check no, thanks, I'm good, and we won't bother you. No big deal, but yes, I'd like to have a free website demo, or no thanks, I'm not interested in a website demo. Either way, no big deal, but check one of those options on your screen right now. I'll be happy to follow up with you or not follow up with you accordingly. But as you're thinking about what the future holds, I would really encourage you to answer that question. It's, do you feel future-proof? And we chose that name and we trademarked that name very intentionally because a future-proof website is what we believe everybody needs. So that no matter what happens, and we all know technology is changing incredibly fast, will your website be ready? Is it in a position where it can get updated based off what we don't even know is going to happen yet? 6 months from now, things are going to be very different than they are today from a website technology perspective. And will your website automatically work towards getting better for you, or will you have to pay extra money or figure that out on your own? It's an important question to answer as you lean into, am I future-proof or am I not? And understanding the difference between what that means and the decisions that you're making. So lastly, you have questions and we have answers. If you have questions, definitely let us know. You can use the chat panel and we'll follow up with you on those questions to get you answers to those, or you can email us. My contact information is on the screen. Or maybe you need help driving revenue in 2020. You just want to really help figure out, like, you've started this journey of using the boot camps to learn. Maybe you've been a frequent webinar attender, but now is the time to step in and say, okay, I'm going to commit to making 2020 the best year it can be. I want to make 2020 my best revenue year ever. We'd love to talk to you about it. Simply email me or call me. We'd love to schedule some time to talk about how can we use the information we're sharing through this bootcamp series that our team is working on across our customer base to make 2020 the best year yet. So definitely get in touch with us. We'd love to at least have a conversation and figure out if there's something we can help you with as you're working towards your goals and making 2020 the best year yet. So with that, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you've learned a lot about what it means to have a great website in 2020, as well as a few marketing ideas we've talked a little bit about throughout our time together today. Make sure that you register for our upcoming boot camps coming up in the next few weeks, as well as share this with a friend. And if today's content's been helpful for you, we'd love if you'd comment on our YouTube videos below, or make sure that you connect with us on Facebook, or leave us a 5-star review on Google. I love getting 5-star reviews and hearing about what you learned on our webinar. So that's really beneficial. We love if you share that content with us on our Google My Business page and leave us a 5-star review. That would be awesome. So thank you guys for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week for our webinar on what to expect from Google in 2020. Definitely something you don't want to miss. Talk to you guys soon.